Rashida Tlaib, The Jewish Question, Anti-Semitic Tropes by Trump Who Deigns to Call Himself Jesus, the BDS Movement, Israel, Joe Biden, and We're Just Beginning. Welcome to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show with my partner in politics, veteran White House correspondent Matthew Cooper, always available at HalliCasser-Jayne.com and on all your favorite apps. I am Halli Casser-Jayne. Anti-Semitism and Israel were the topics of the week when Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu barred Democratic Party representatives Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar from entering Israel, the first two Muslims elected to Congress, who then took their battle with Israel to the airwaves. Trump egged them on, called Jews who voted with the Democratic Party the anti-Semitic trope disloyal. And the Democrats sided with the two Congresswomen, both who themselves have made anti-Semitic statements against Israel and are pro the BDS Movement, the Palestinian-led campaign promoting various forms of boycott against the Jewish state. But that's not all. Joe Biden regained his double-digit lead in the Democratic Party's presidential contest, while Kamala Harris has taken a precipitous 12-point fall. Is Biden a good bet for the Dems? Why isn't Steve Bullock, Montana's popular governor and a moderate Democrat leading a Republican state, not getting attention from Democratic Party voters? Is gun control dead? Will the trade war finish Trump? Is a recession on the horizon? There's a lot to talk about. Here we go. Hi, Matt.
Hi. How are you, Halli?
I am feeling like a lot of Jewish angst, darling. I'm
and
not
what
a
else
happy
is
camper. I'm not.
What else is new?
No. I'm really not a happy camper, and
I'm sure. Well, tell me what's on your mind.
Well, because this thing with Trump and the Jews.
Yes.
We need to discuss this. This is not getting an honest conversation by either the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, or by AIPAC, or by Jews, or by Christians, or by anybody. I've never seen such a mess.
Well, tell me what you're referring to more specifically.
Okay, so let me get to where we start. We start with this trip that Congresswoman Tlaib and Omar, two known anti-Semites who have been chastised for their positions, to then their trip to Israel, and which becomes a political football in Israel. Not to mention which Trump jumped on that train, and Netanyahu, I guess at Trump's behest, bars Tlaib from entering Israel. She writes a letter, right? She wants to go see her grandmother in Samaria, or as some people call it, the West Bank. And they said, okay, fine. And then what does she do? She turns it down. What also has not been reported broadly by the so-called left-wing media is that MIFTA, a rabidly anti-Israel organization, actually was sponsoring this trip. She wasn't really going as a part of a congressional delegation. And then, of course, all hell breaks loose, and the Dems wind up coming to the defense of Tlaib. And secondarily, because she wasn't the pro person at the time, most important, Omar. So here's what, then the president last night goes on his, throws out his, anti-Semitic trope. If Democrats don't vote with Republicans, then they're disloyal to, America, so to speak, right? And then everybody goes to rant and raving about all of this. And here's my thing. How is it, Matt, that the Democratic Party finds itself in a position where it is defending, Tlaib against all of, these, she's a horror. And then on the other hand, they go after Trump when he says exactly the same thing in his way that she's been saying. This is not okay. And at the core of this also is this BDS movement. So we'll get into that because I want to talk about the fact that is a terrorist organization. Okay. I calmed down as I told the story. You talk to me. Tell me what you think.
Well, it is, as you suggested, there are a lot of things going on that need to sort of be unraveled. Let's start with just back up and start with the two Congresswomen who are at issue here, Ilhan Omar from Minnesota and Tlaib from Michigan, they both wanted to do this trip that was sort of their own trip in parallel to a large large congressional trip to the Middle East. So they want to go to Israel. They both have been accused, rightfully, I think, of making anti-Semitic statements, although they've denied that was their intent. And they've wanted to do this separate trip, which, as you said, was sponsored by this MIFTA group and others, and that it was clearly a trip meant to highlight Israel's conflict with Palestinians. It was not a standard congressional delegation or co-del visit to Israel. It was their own sort of propaganda effort, if you want to call it, to make a case against Israel. The issue then became, what would Israel do about it? Now, Israel has never denied American members of Congress from going there. And in fact, they didn't really even have a law about this until fairly recently, just 2 years ago in the 70-plus year history of the country. So this is all pretty new, this idea of barring American members of Congress from going to visit Israel.
Can I interject one thing here?
You can, but I'm still getting to my point.
Because I think I just want to put a comma in there. On the other hand, America has barred Israelis from coming into the United States. Okay, just needed to get that in there. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, that is true, but we've done that under laws that apply to all countries about terrorists and such. In any event, Israel has certainly barred other parliamentarians and other groups from coming in that they thought were promoting the boycott, divest, and sanction movement. Okay, so Trump publicly pressures Israel to not allow Tlaib and Omar to come into the U.S. Many strong supporters of Israel, both in the country and outside Israel, including Joe Lieberman, your own Marco Rubio, the Republican senator from Florida, and others, suggest that this is not a good idea, that is abhorrent as they find Omar and Tlaib, that the idea of banning members of Congress from going to Israel was ultimately not in Israel's interest. But nevertheless, Netanyahu and his government, via its cabinet secretary, denies them the visit. And as you said, Tlaib then seeks special permission to go see her relative on the West Bank because she is of Palestinian descent. Israel agrees to that, and then she pulls out. So it's a big mess, and that's before yesterday when the president suggests that Jews have some loyalty issues if they're supporting the Tlaib-Omar visit. Okay. I hear you on all that. I don't think we're in a lot of disagreement. I mean, we're probably in disagreement about whether Israel made a wise decision to ban them. I tend to agree that is not in Israel's long-term interest. But be that as it may, it's a sovereign country, so they can make, they have their big boy pants. They can make their own decisions about who they let in. How all this is primarily the problem of Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden, John Delaney, Joe Manchin, Amy Klobuchar. I don't understand why given all of that tumult, your primary animus is about the Democrats.
Because I feel very strongly that there is not a quid pro quo here. I think that there is, what's the word I'm looking for? You cannot cite Trump. Double standard, thank you. You cannot cite Trump and go after him every time he does something that you're not happy about and not cite your own. I don't really think at this point it's about what Bibi Netanyahu did, who, by the way, is in the middle of an election. So, next month he's up for re-election and he needs that right-wing faction of his. That's a different story. And whether or not he should do it, I think at this point is also, in a way, a different story. This is a story about what's going on in the Democratic Party. And it's a party that has a double standard thing going, number one, and it's getting itself really defined by Trump because it keeps falling for Trump's crap. Which was he set them up to defend the indefensible. But you now understand that within the Democratic Party, there's a lot of anti-Israel, and I'd go so far as to say anti-Semitism in the base. Now, I'm not talking about Schumer. You didn't hear me say Schumer or whatever. I'm not saying that's leadership. I said, well, that's leadership. But there are also people who are Democrats, and they are rapidly anti-Semitic, BDS, pro-BDS, anti-Israel. And what's happening is the leadership's mistake in all of this is it won't take a stand. It's playing both ends of the coin, or whatever that expression is.
Well, as you know, they did pass a resolution. You may think it was too soft.
Well, you did too.
They didn't take it. Yeah, it's not like they haven't taken any action to condemn Omar and Ilab. Ilab Omar and Tlaib.
Right.
So clearly they reacted when the original anti-Semitic statements were made.
This is my point. It was the same playing both sides of the coin, walking down the center, and not taking a stand. And let me tell you, this goes to the election, Matt, because the reason that Trump...
Well, you may think it was an insufficient stand, that's fine.
They didn't even name their names. They walked it down the center because they were afraid to do anything more. And let me tell you why this matters so much for the election. Trump is got his 40%, which is what he's down to today, base, because those people, may not like him, all this, but what they do like is that the guy's got balls and the Democrats don't. And that's a problem. And this is all goes to that. They are weak, Matt. They are weak.
Right.
I was going to go on my rant today. I'm on it, babe.
I think I get where you're coming from. And you did sort of take a not subtle swipe at the media before that you thought they had done something wrong too here. Am I reading you right?
I don't remember bringing up the media. Did I bring up the media? But you want to talk about the media? I mean, the media.
No. I don't want to talk about the media.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about the media. This is really about the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party is a wishy-washy, unless you're on the far left and where there's no middle ground there, babe. You're either on the far left and completely militant, whoa, off the cliff, or you're Nancy or you're Chuck and you're punting. You're taking no stands. You're playing it.
Right.
It's wrong.
Well, you were sensitive to Bibi's political circumstances as
I mentioned it. I didn't say I was sensitive to it.
You're
I brought it up because I think it's part of the story.
Right, you're aware of his maneuvering room, given what Democrats need to do. Tell me what you would like.
Let me tell you something else about.
Tell me what you would like to see. I don't entirely understand what you would like to see.
Let me tell you something also about Bibi, which is this: this BDS movement has to be discussed because I heard a lot of pundits saying don't equate this to terrorism. It's economic terrorism. If you cut off somebody's money, and way of life and ability to earn money, that's economic war. Though we have to remember that these people who call themselves Palestinians, who are actually Arabs, declared war on Israel back in 1948, whatever, and they're at war. It's a war. So Israel always has to look at it from the point of view that America doesn't remember. They are under assault. They've got bombs lobbed into them. They've got terrorists. There is a war going on. What do I think? I think that the Democrats need to nip this in the bud. And this goes back to Obama, and I wrote about it in my book. He was the first president since World War II to mention, to go down the middle and say there's a problem with Israel and we have to take care of the Palestinians. He opened up that genie that had been kept in a bottle, that you don't go after Israel publicly. You stand with Israel in AIPAC and publicly, but if you've got issues, you do it behind the table. And during the campaign of Obama, back in the day, geez, that seems like a lifetime ago, he was the first one to bring it up. So I just think that the Democrats, the leadership has to get a hold of that left-wing faction who has always been a problem on other issues as well. And they've shut their mouths and say, this is not something that we allow. Either this is the Democratic Party stands with the state of Israel, and whatever discussions we're going to have about the state of Israel, we'll do in private. But on the public stage, we stick with Israel, and we don't allow people like Trump to come and divide and conquer us. That's it.
So just
it has to be definitive. It has to be a definitive statement. I don't know that they can do that because they're
saying we stand with. I mean, that's something of a bromide. I mean, they say that all the time.
No, they don't really say it.
We stand with Israel. I think you want. I think what you've wanted since these Tlaib and Omar comments.
They're both terrorists who've infiltrated Congress. As far as I'm concerned, is that radical? Okay, I'm radical, but I see them as working for Palestinian causes, not for American causes.
Well, I'm not sure accusations of dual loyalty are helpful.
I didn't say dual loyalty. I only said one.
Okay. I'm not sure accusations of foreign treachery are helpful, directed.
Well, but it's okay for the President of the United States to do it.
No, I mean, you would. I'm not sure what would make you happy.
Maybe I don't have an answer to it except to say that I see the Democratic Party playing at both sides, and I at least see the Republican Party being definitive and standing strong and straight on all issues, not just on Israel. I mean, they get an issue, they define the issue, and they stay with it. And the Democratic Party goes into 400,000 directions all over the place.
Well, I understand, but
that's why they're going to lose.
I understand, but does standing with Israel and accusing Jews who vote for Democrats of having loyalty problems? Well,
he's a nutcase, and we'll talk about the fact that the President of the United States is a nut job.
To me, at least, you seem. I'm surprised you don't have more ire directed at the president after his comments yesterday.
Well, it's funny about that because I thought about that this morning before I called him. And I was thinking, am I giving him a pass? No, I think what he said was disgusting. But I don't take anything this guy says seriously. I just see it as all propaganda and manipulation and, he doesn't believe one thing or the other. It's never about what he believes because I don't think he believes in anything other than one thing, Donald Trump, and what he has to do to get himself reelected and keep his power. He comes from a very different place than I think that you can say that people in the Democratic Party come from. I mean, those are still people with minds and hearts and souls and beliefs, whereas I don't think that you can say that of Trump. There is no Republican Party. I mean, that's an issue we'll talk about in a minute because, they're just lemmings and then whatever he says is fine. But he is definitive and he plays it.
Well, I understand what you're saying about Trump's not necessarily having firm beliefs.
Yeah, it means nothing to him. And he said it, and by the way, I doubt that he meant to go that far. He made his original statement, and if you watch the tape, you just watch him doing what he always does. He opens up a mouth and goes too far.
I understand. I was watching. Yeah. Regardless of
are you happy with all of this in the Democratic Party?
Well, let me finish. Regardless of his intentions, the President of the United States making a rather explicit dual loyalty
was disgraceful.
Is more than disgraceful. It's extremely destructive. I mean, at a time of when we've had anti-Semitic terror attacks and attempted attacks,
right?
That has potentially dangerous consequences. And
but you don't seem to have the same ire over on the left.
Well, first of all, let me just stick with Trump for a second. Okay. I think it is not something to be one. I don't think it's, well, that's kind of Trump being Trump. You know, he doesn't believe in anything. I think it's a very serious thing with potentially serious consequences, and I take it seriously even if he doesn't. Second, I do think it makes, you know, I think it should make one question, you know, just how solidly, you know, they stand with Israel and such. You know, this is really a president who's all about him. And one can imagine what might have happened had the Netanyahu government allowed Tlaib and Omar to visit over his objections. So I think the idea of one party standing solidly with Israel while the other is in bed with BDS is, I think, misstates what's going on.
Okay.
Look, I don't disagree with you that I believe Tlaib and Omar have said anti-Semitic things. I think it's unfounded of you to say that they have loyalties only outside the United States and that they're terrorists. I don't really think that's quite what you believe either.
I absolutely, unequivocally cannot get into their hearts or their minds. But I think Tlaib is a very dangerous woman. And you may think that she, or I could say that she loves the United States, but she loves her Palestinians more. And she's been willing to take it as far out as she can possibly get it since all of this happened. You read what she's been writing, and it is astonishing. But I do have a problem because the thing that you haven't said, and you know, is something's going on that is not okay in the Democratic Party when it comes to Jews and anti-Semitism and Israel. And it can't be swept under the rug. It's scary. The only thing that you have on the right that holds them together is, and it's for the wrong reasons, is the evangelical movement, which is what this is all about on their part. And that's not pretty either, by the way, because, you know, they're just waiting for, you know, the rapture and all Jews will be dead anyway because we're bad. But do you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of unholy alliance in all of this.
I am not in disagreement about anti-Semitism on the left.
Yeah, it's very discerned. It's very scary, kiddo. It's very scary.
We probably disagree about the extent to which it affects, you know, members of Congress.
But you know what's scary about it also, Matt? Look at the age of the group that's standing with Israel.
Yeah.
And then the next generation of Democrats.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right about that. I find the sort of loyalty charges, all
right, that's fine. I
crazy with the, when Trump's saying it, when Omar's saying it, when anyone's, you know,
it's crazy. No, it is crazy. But it is what it is. Something is going bad here, and it's not being addressed appropriately. And look, you know, you calm me down. It's both sides, but you can't say it's just Trump. You have to say the Democrats.
No, I'm not. I'm certainly
the Democrats have a really big issue here.
I'm certainly not saying it's just Trump.
And it's scary. And,
look, it was. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
I know you do. I know on a lot of levels you agree with me. You know, we're in scary times with this.
Well, we're
being two reasonable Jews here.
Yeah, our role is to. Although we, look, I'm
sorry, but we had to talk about that, and we had to go to that level of.
No, we did. Okay, we're back to our decaf.
Okay, so let's get back to decaf and let's go to the election. Let's go to Biden is way up, and he got flack for saying he can work with Republicans by Democrats. I mean, here you go. I mean, ain't that what the problem is? Nobody's working with each other. What's wrong with saying I'm going to be willing to work with them? But he's up, and he's up in double digits again. and it's astonishing to me, when you put that next to Kamala, is down by 12 points. Oh my God.
Yeah, it does seem to have been a quick rise for her.
Whoa.
A precipitous fall.
Can she come back from that?
Sure. I mean, things happen and it's still early, and we've seen the history of these caucuses and early primaries that things change a lot in the last few months. But that said, Biden's lead is proving more durable than a lot of people had imagined. And, why that is, why she fell so quickly is kind of an interesting thing. Did she go too far? I think you may have been right that she just went too far in the original attack, and there was kind of a backlash. Was it her inability to follow up with much of anything? It could be that too. What's remarkable is how many people have fallen that, Booker and
Booker didn't fall. He never could get himself.
No, Booker could never.
And in a way, right. Buttigieg was the media, not the numbers, because the numbers were never great for him either.
But better than they are now.
Well, and O'Rourke.
The only thing that's been sort of also steady is Warren's rise.
Exactly.
And I think I think there's a logic to that makes sense, and that probably makes her Biden's most enduring challenger.
Well, what you've got going on in the Democratic Party right now is the typical what they always have going: left versus the moderates. Hello.
Well, that is true, and
and every time the left wins, Matt, what happens to the Dems? They lose.
Yeah. I think. I mean, some of them were not considered. I mean, they didn't go with the most liberal people in the race when they went with Kerry and Dukakis. They were not. They were not the super liberals in the race. But I take your point.
Yeah. But I do think it's interesting. And the thing here's what I want to say about Kamala, which I think is, I wanted your thought on. She actually has disappeared in a way. She's not making big grandstanding statements anymore. And every time they talk to her, by the way, she says one thing and then she says another. I mean, this thing on universal health care, she doesn't have a lane really. She's trying to find her lane in between, Biden and Liz, Elizabeth. But so there's that. But has she said, or has a behind the scenes deal been made? Shut your mouth, stay out of this. I'll give you the vice president. I just get this. She just turned off so quickly. I'm wondering whether.
Well, I imagine it doesn't have to be that explosive. I don't think there's a lot of appetite in the party for internecine warfare right now.
Well, no, not after that last debate. And
scorched earth warfare.
I agree with that.
I think the donor class and others. May have said cool it, or she just wasn't getting enough traction out of it.
No, there's something strange going on there.
Well, she's clearly kind of, been kind of spineless on the policy stuff. So that may have caught her. That Warren and Biden have been more definitive, especially Warren, about where they stand on things, and that's probably helping them.
You were listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at hallicasserjayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Be sure to find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and on all your favorite apps. You can find the Halli Casser-Jayne Show on your Alexa device, too. Just say, the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at the Halli CJ Show. Sunday night, I think it's at 6:00, Steve Bullock was going to be on CNN for an hour. Everybody listened to him.
You and Steve Bullock, it's cute, you two.
I tell you what, I saw him a couple of days ago on something. It must have been he was being interviewed, God knows where, because me, I'm watching this crap all day long. He is so measured and so smart.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't have a chance.
And exactly, isn't that sad? And he's so aw shucks in some ways, but then he knows how to needle too. But I sent you a text about this, and it's the fact that the Democratic Party, my sources tell me, have gotten to him and are just so pissed off at him, if I can say that, because they really want him to run for the Senate seat. Now, first of all, there are a lot of people running for the Senate seat in Montana, so I'm not sure why they feel so strongly that he's got to be the guy, because the polls are looking pretty good for those that are in already. And so they're just mad at him because he's not towing the party line on it. And that's why they're not giving him any traction. I think it's a huge mistake because he is the only moderate, listen to me about this, Matt, next to Biden. And if Biden falls, which, could happen, where do they go? They are.
Well, why is he the only one?
Because there are, who's in the moderate lane?
Well, Klobuchar.
Klobuchar doesn't have it. Let's be real.
Okay, well, I'm saying
the only other person who could pick up the mantle, who has the personality and the twinkle to do it, in my opinion, and has it proven, as a governor. God, remember the days when we used to elect governors for presidents, former governors? How delicious is that? People with real experience on legislating. Oh my. I'm saying it's a big mistake on them not to have him or somebody in there as backup. So, I have a crush on him. Okay. But I'm saying anybody, it's scary that they have no backup for Trump.
Yeah. Well, I think I think those votes will go somewhere if Biden collapses.
I didn't hear you. What?
I said those votes will go somewhere if Biden collapses.
Yeah. Well, where?
Well, we don't know yet. Right.
But the Democratic Party's whole message is anybody. Doesn't matter who.
Yeah. Well, clearly,
I don't think that's true.
Clearly, the self-consciously reasonable types, Bennett, Klobuchar, Delaney, Bullock. There's probably a couple others I'm not remembering. Aren't showing any mojo, so maybe that'll change. But
well, like I said, the reason that they're not showing any mojo is because they're not getting the exposure, because I think the party is, and I think it's interesting that CNN stepped in and said, let's give this guy, his own, what do they call those things?
Yeah, their own little town hall.
Right. Thing. I mean, the hour after is the mayor of New York.
They've done it for other.
Yeah. Well, the hour after is the mayor of New York. Not sure why, but,
oh, right. Well, we're gonna.
Well, so let's see what happens. I'm just saying there's a problem here, and that is the Democratic Party doesn't have a backup.
Right.
And that's not a smart move on their part. Let's move to gun control.
Yes.
Very quickly, because, the president came out after this last mess in, El Paso and in Ohio, and I'm all for federal background checks, and we're going to do it. And, Mr. Flip Flop, forget John Kerry, Mr. President, got on the phone with Wayne LaPierre. I call him Wayne LaPew. And he just threw it away. Senator Feinstein posted a tweet yesterday with statistics about when the federal assault weapons ban was in and how that really did cap the amount of killings. It was the statistics are extraordinary. I don't want to bore our listeners with that. Go back and see if you can find it. But This is a mess, that you got a president who could care less about anything other than the money coming in from the NRA, which doesn't have any money. So I don't really quite even understand why Wayne LaPierre and Wayne LaPew has such a hold over Trump. It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, the NRA, the NRA power, I think, was never as much in the money as it was in the threat of mobilizing a huge number of voters who care and will vote on this issue, as opposed to the vast majority that says they like gun control but doesn't really vote on it. Right,
but they are not the majority. I mean, 97% of Americans of both parties.
They're not the majority. But as you know, in politics, who shows up and who is assumed to show up on the basis of a single issue matters.
But even they are showing in polls that they want something done, and he's
overwhelmingly.
Right.
NRA members, hunters, absolutely.
Right. So I don't get that altogether.
There's a lot of support for this, but we've now seen this, at least in Sandy Hook, if not earlier, that these tragedies are not enough to move any legislative action, and
Well, then we get back to me and my argument with Congress.
One hopes that will change.
Well, they're feckless.
Right.
Feckless is the way it is. Okay. Moving along, and this is something that
I will say, I don't think Bill Clinton gets enough. He's seen by so many on the left of the Democratic Party as a corporate, centrist, hollow, callow sellout. He took an extraordinary risk in the early 90s to push that assault weapons ban through. It's the biggest gun control measure of any president since 1968, and he did it against considerable odds, and he lost control of Congress because of it. And it was an act of extreme political courage, probably more courage than they realized at the time.
No, I get that. I'm with you.
And he gets really no credit for it.
Well, he doesn't get credit for a lot right now. He's the bad boy. Did you see that picture that was hanging in Epstein's house of him in the blue dress?
Yeah, that's one twisted mind going on over there.
I mean, oh my God. But my point being, that's certainly, let's just go there and say that right now he is persona non grata in the Democratic Party, and he's the only one who had things percolating along for America in the last 75 since the war. I mean, really, if you think about it, we had an economy that actually was good, and we had he balanced the budget. Remember that? Oh my.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I want to move to the Republican Party. There is something going on here, whether Mr. Scaramucci started it or not, but there seems to be that there are some people starting to say, wait a minute, maybe we will primary challenge old Trump baby. John Kasich is on the way to New Hampshire. Joe Walsh says he may throw the hat in. Mark Sanford, who's an idiot, says he may, but he'll vote Republican if he doesn't get it. Jeff Flake is even making a little noise. What do you think? I mean, huh?
Well, I think there's some rumbling. I don't think it's, I don't think it can be a serious threat to Trump and his renomination. I think it's, right now it's a little more than a bump. There is a candidate against him, former Massachusetts Governor William Weld, who's not a bad vehicle for all of this, but other more traditional Republicans can get in, and we'll see. But I think it's hard to underestimate the degree to which Republicans have shown blind loyalty to Trump, both in the electorate and in Congress, and that's what's been so remarkable.
Cindy McCain made a statement this morning. I just want to put it out there. No one in the Republican Party is the voice of reason since my husband's death. Boy, truer words were never spoken, and what a dig that was to Lindsey Graham Cracker.
Yeah, well, Lindsey Graham Cracker is the epitome of a Trump critic who is thrown all in with the president.
Right.
The most he does is try to nudge him a little bit in his public appearances, but only in the most subservient of ways. And so there's really, you're not seeing any opposition to him to speak of. Maybe this will get a little juice going, but I don't think the mooch is going to be more effective at this than he was in the Trump White House.
But, after a while, it starts to get interesting with Conway tweeting every morning and, and now Mooch. I mean, it's
No, there's no question. There are conservatives who've been, upset with this president. Most of them have been in the sort of,
no Trump group,
the writer, intellectual realm, George Will and whatnot. But,
well, let's hope. Let's hope, let's hope. I said, George Conway, and I do want to talk about this briefly, and that is this business, Matt, about, Trump is crazy. A lot of these, these types are on Twitter, he's He's a narcissist. He's a malignant narcissist. He's a, sociopath. He's crazy. He's mentally ill. Look what he did this morning. He changed his tune on this. He's crazy. I don't know whether that doesn't hurt the Democrats' argument against him. Because at this point, I find everything kind of flying off my brain like, okay, yeah, he's crazy. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I mean, they really
kind of baked in the cake.
Yeah, right. And they really, it's like they're fighting him. And I actually don't think that anybody has gotten the right arrow pointed at the right spot on Trump. I just think, it's not, they have, it goes on and on and on. There's all this hate for Trump and, there's this movement against, we hate Trump, yada, yada, yada. But Trump is still in power, still at his 40%, still calling the shots, not impeached, which is something we can talk about in a second. You get my drift? I just think, calling the president of the United States a nut job, it ain't doing the trick. It's a joke. He's a joke. Have they made him a joke? But as long as he's in power, he's not a joke. And he looks to be able to be reelected, I gotta tell you. Yeah?
Yeah. No, look, I mean, if he's crazy, he's very effective crazy.
Yes.
And I agree that it's not adding new information to say, I mean, to tell people he's crazy, they know who Trump is, I think.
I would say so.
Right. And this is like Hillary Clinton 2016 saying, like, he's mean.
And everybody around him are deplorable. I mean, it's not effective. It's not effective. I think they haven't found effective yet.
Yeah. I mean, that said, he's not that popular. But he's probably popular enough to win.
Well, so
they got to get something better. Now, I think the economy is going to do some of the work for them. I think there's a pretty good chance it's going to be worse than a year.
I don't know. CNN or somebody this morning, was in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the hometown of Mr. Biden, doing some interviews this morning, and those Trumpsters are like, the economy goes up, the economy goes down. There's no difference to us.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you're probably onto something about his just projecting consistency. And I mean, even though he's emotionally erratic, he is sort of.
I don't think he's emotionally erratic at all. I actually think he's very measured and knows exactly what he's doing. And he does it, sometimes he falls into it. I get that.
I know. I don't see how you can say the tweets are measured.
Oh, I think they're measured because he whenever he wants to get the press off of something that's a problem for him, he does it and has done it for the last 2 and some odd years or 3 years. I mean, he's done it, honey. I mean, they always follow him down. And then you have to say, the gun control thing until this morning kind of went away for a week or so, because the Epstein story took place. It's like they can only stay on one thing, but who took him down the next road? He is, if you go back and read his tweets, which I have done, and it's fascinating, he's in control of the game. He doesn't need to have a press agent for him or, press secretary. He's doing it himself. He just takes you where he wants you to go. And it doesn't matter how silly, and usually he does it with silly, by the way. He goes for the most outrageous thing in the world in order to get the press and everybody off of the story he doesn't want to get a lot of legs, i.e. the economy tanking. So he goes crazy. Then he brings up, let's buy Greenland. And everybody bought him.
Well, that's true. What a guy.
I'm saying to you, Democrats haven't figured him out yet. So let's get back to that word impeachment. Remember that?
Right. No, I know. I know. I know where you're at on this. Democrats have been wimps. Nancy's a wimp. They have to call it an impeachment inquiry, which
yes,
Nadler kind of did the other day.
Yeah, they've even put it into some of the stuff. I know one judge blew it off and said, "This is crap. You're not impeaching him, so don't use that." But in large, they're putting it into the court papers.
But you're not. Is that sufficient for you? You want more, right?
Well, no. I think that they definitely need to start whipping this guy to shreds, because what they do have on him is, he did cross the line and, violated the law. And there is more to that story on Russia. But the only way you're going to be able to bloody the guy is not through candidates doing it and not through tweets and, press tweeting, their angst about him or any of that. It's going to have to be something very real and very ugly. And that means getting members of his team in front of the American public and beating them to shreds. So you beat him to shreds. That's how I feel. I don't think it's questioned whether he gets impeached or not. He may or he may not. Big deal. I don't think so. But like I said, it's that daily picture starting in September of people coming, you see the swamp. You get the real story out there, not the one that Bill Barr wants to hide, but the real story. And then we see what happens. You can't wait for the economy to tank, Matt, to win an election.
I didn't say that.
And the trade war, which we should talk about very quickly, that ain't gonna do it either. Because if he finds out that it's going to get too painful to the American public, he will either back off and take that hit, or he'll enact some legislation that makes people think they're getting 5 cents back in their pockets.
Right.
Whatever. So, he can play that any way he wants, and he still will win on that. Home Depot this morning or last night said that their sales growth is slowing. And when that happens, that's bad. That's very bad. That's as bad as it gets, is when you start to see the construction, quote unquote, industry, going down the tubes, and they're the whatever for it. But I go back to what I was saying, Matt. I don't think the Democrats have themselves together on winning this election. I've been very pro Biden. I'm worried about him. I won't say frail.
Yeah. No, look, look, Biden is a risky bet. They're all risky bets. He's less risky, but he's still risky.
Not my Steve Bullock.
Well, Steve Bullock is dreamy, says Halli.
You got to have a sense of humor through this whole thing, or you're screwed.
I know. You're sitting there writing in your notebook, HCJ plus SB.
Let's try and get him on the show. Seriously, let's try and get him on the show.
I think if you can't, that's sad, because he's, I'm sure you could get him to talk to a 6th grade class at this point, this guy.
I don't know. I'm going to reach out to him.
Not.
Maybe
you're not mine.
Let's both you and I reach out to him, and let's see whether
okay.
I do think, I know you're joking. You think it's cute with me, but I really want you to listen to him, because he's more sensible than anybody I've listened to from the entire
look, I think he's got some charisma, and clearly, in the reasonable caucus, Bennett and Klobuchar are not putting it together. So
yeah, so that would be good. And like I said, I do think that there is that issue of you better have a backup plan, and they don't. I want to throw out Susan Collins, who I despise. All sorts of dark money is being thrown at her, big time. They want her back in there. You have anything on her?
She's drawn pretty strong Democratic opponent, the House Speaker. So I think she's going to have to, fight for it. It's definitely a trending Democratic state, but,
if they can get her out,
she's a pretty good retail politician up there. And, it's going to be a very contested state. I don't know. I mean, she could hang on. So, but obviously this is the one Republicans think is the most vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the Democrats have enough chutzpah to really do what they need to do to take her out. I want to talk to Jeffrey Epstein for a second. This is a mess. I don't think this goes away. I think this starts to percolate once we get closer to the election.
Do you mean the circumstances of his suicide?
Well, I think that's there, but
I think his Clinton.
I think his ties to everybody, because I think Bill Richardson. I mean, the list is it's a mess. I mean, the Prince, or whoever he's called, Fergie's husband, ex-husband. I think this does wind up not going completely away and making trouble. What do you think?
I don't know. I just don't. I mean, I think you could be right. I just don't know where it goes now that he's dead. What else is actually out there as opposed to speculation? I don't know.
Yeah,
but it certainly has that potential. I mean,
yeah, who's got what and who knows what and who's willing to dump what at the right time? It's my, that's my thought there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not convinced that others took part in his, perversity and criminality.
My God. I don't buy that. I don't agree with that.
You believe that
I'm not in the criminal
former
part.
president
I'm talking
had sex with underage girls.
Oh, I don't.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't know that it was because they were underage. It's just there they were. I mean, after all, Monica was underage, wasn't she? Just about.
No, Monica.
I mean, no,
was
she
well
wasn't.
But
She was in her 20s, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. Listen. There's nobody who adores Bill Clinton more than I do. For a lot, as somebody I know personally, and also as somebody who I thought was one of the more effective presidents we've had lately. But that being said, Bill Clinton's not the one I'm worried about. I think there are other people who may have been involved too.
I mean, it's certainly, it's possible, and it may be enough that even just being in that orbit proves, toxic to Trump or others.
No, it might be a way to go after Trump.
I must say Bill Barr's doing a great job with it. His Bureau of Prisons allowed the guy to get, off himself. I'm surprised you don't have a more elaborate theory of his death.
You didn't ask me.
Well, I just assumed since you hadn't.
No, I don't see, Matt, how if you look at this and you have any, not a vivid imagination, but an imagination where you can take pieces of a puzzle and put them together that you can see the whole picture, that you don't say, wait a second here. So yeah, I do think he was offed. And particularly, I think the killer on it is, the fact that he had broken bones in his neck that normally don't happen during, that happen under strangulation, not under hanging. How many pieces could be come together there for this to happen? They were asleep. It wasn't the regular crew. He had been on suicide. He didn't want to be on suicide watch, this, that, and the other thing. It's all just a crazy story. I don't know that we'll ever know the truth, though. That's why it becomes kind of it'll always be a guessing game, right? Because Barr has buried everything. You can be sure. If there were tapes, you'll never see them. They've been doctored or they've been destroyed. So you're never going to know. So, it's a parlor game.
Yeah.
At this point. Okay. Last question. Ready?
Yeah.
A couple has been stranded for a decade on a remote island when they're finally rescued, Matt. How do you explain Trump to them?
Well, let's see. They were, that means they were stranded after the financial crisis. I think you would have to say, remember that financial crisis before you left? It's over, but people really hate their government and their politicians, and they really did something about it this time. I think that's the only way I could explain it to our marooned couple.
It's an interesting question, isn't it? I saw it on Twitter.
It is an interesting question. First, you have to get over their shock, yes.
Yeah, right. I just thought, oh my, yeah, that says it all. I mean, that, if you come up with the answer to that, you also can possibly win the election for the Democratic Party. And on that note, I say to you, I think those Democrats are out on an island, honey. It's remote. They ain't paying attention. They don't got any TV. They don't really get what's going on.
Well, I share your concern about their vulnerabilities. I think they have a lot, but he is beatable. He is beatable.
You really think he's beatable?
I don't think he's invincible. I think he can be beat. At the moment, I'd say he won't be, but
well,
it's
honey,
doable.
this is like we're going into September.
No, I understand. There's in the next year, we'll see. I don't know.
Okay. Well, you know what I did? You know what I didn't get this week?
Could be.
Okay.
Could be. Sorry, I was late on the could be.
Good night, Matt.
Good night, Halli.
Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at hallicasserjayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.